Hi. Good to see you. A girl was unfairly punished and humiliated by the teacher during class for helping a humble classmate. The next day, the teacher found a note on her desk that left her stomach upset. How dare you disrespect my class like that, Nayeli? You think this is a game that you can do whatever you want? How disrespectful. Your family didn't teach you manners. Mrs. Elvira's voice echoed through Fury's classroom, and Nayeli raised her head quickly, her face turning pale. During the mathematics class, Nayeli discreetly passed a sheet of paper with notes to Aurora, her humble classmate who often could not keep up with the subject. Mrs. Elvira was just trying. Nayeli began but was abruptly interrupted. Silence. Don't give me excuses, girl. Mrs. Elvira, with his short gray hair and flaming green eyes, did not allow Nayeli to complete the sentence. This is a place of learning, no distractions. You think you can pass notes and interrupt class without consequences? Nayeli felt tears. She threatened to fall, but she tried to stay calm. She just wanted to help Aurora. Mrs. Elvira. She didn't understand the subject, Nayeli said, her voice trembling with emotion. However, the teacher interrupted her again without paying the slightest attention to her explanation. I don't want to hear anything more. To learn to follow the rules of this classroom, Nayeli. Mrs. Elvira's words were hard as stones, echoing in the silent classroom. Stand in front of the class right now, and maybe you will understand what discipline Aurora means. With the eyes full of tears, she tried to intervene. Please, Mrs. Elvira, it wasn't her fault. She needed help. But before she could finish, the teacher interrupted her with an authoritarian gesture. Stop it, Aurora. I don't want to hear a word from you. Neither do you. Both need to learn to respect the rules. This disorder is unacceptable. Aurora shrank in her chair, unable to say anything else, while Nayeli walked slowly to the front of the classroom, feeling completely humiliated. The entire class watched in silence. Some students with expressions of fear, others of sympathy. Nayeli stood looking at the ground, feeling the tears running down her face. Why can't she understand that he only wanted to help? Nayeli thought with the pain and injustice burning in her chest. Mrs. Elvira looked to the class, her cold and implacable green eyes. Let this serve as a lesson for all of you here. Discipline is the most important rule. Whoever does not respect this will suffer the consequences, she said, her words cutting the air like a blade. Nayeli felt each word like a blow, increasing her feeling of helplessness. Aurora, still in her place, clenched her hands tightly, trying to contain her tears. I'm so sorry, Nayeli thought. Aurora, feeling guilty and helpless, she wanted to defend her friend, but she knew that any attempt would be in vain given the rigidity of the teacher. After the end of class, Mrs. Elvira called Nayeli for a private conversation. Come with me, she ordered without looking at the student. Nayeli followed the teacher, her heart beating fast. In the office, Elvira called her. She looked at him with a severe look. Do you understand why you are being punished? The teacher asked. The voice was full of disapproval. Nayeli took a deep breath, trying to control her crying. I just wanted to help my friend, Mrs. Elvira. She really doesn't understand the subject, and she doesn't have anyone at home to help her, Elvira explained with a trembling and low voice. However, she remained impassive. She helps her classmates outside the classroom. Nayeli, here you must focus on your own learning. Your disobedience is unacceptable and will not be tolerated, she declared. The teacher, without an iota of compassion. Nayeli left the office with a heavy heart, the injustice and humiliation still fresh in her mind. She just wanted to do good, she thought as she walked home, trying to understand why her kindness was punished so severely. Nayeli arrived home with a heavy heart and eyes still full of tears. He opened the door slowly, feeling the familiarity of the place mixed with the pain of humiliation. His mother, Maria, a woman with dark skin and hands calloused by work, noticed immediately the state of her daughter. What happened? Nayeli asked Mara. Looking aside at the kitchen towel that Nayeli was holding, she felt a lump in her throat. It was Mrs. Elvira who humiliated me in front of the whole class for trying to help Aurora, Nayeli explained with a trembling voice. Emotion and despair. Maria hugged Nayeli, trying to comfort my daughter. You just wanted to help. Sometimes people don't understand our acts of kindness, Maria said. Stroking her daughter's hair, Nayeli felt the heat of her mother's hug, the injustice still burning in her chest. Mom, but it was so cruel. I just wanted Aurora to understand the matter, Nayeli responded, feeling the tears flow again. Maria sighed, feeling her daughter's pain as if it were her own. Mrs. Elvira must have her own problems. That doesn't justify what she did, but maybe it will help. Understand, said Maria, trying to relieve the weight that Nayeli was carrying. She looked at her mother still with her eyes full of tears. "But it's so difficult, Mom. I just wanted to do good. Why did this happen to me?" Nayeli asked, feeling lost and confused. Maria squeezed Nayeli against yourself. "You are a wonderful girl, Nayeli. Never let the cruelty of others extinguish your kindness. The world needs more people like you," Maria said, her voice firm and full of love. Nayeli felt a small relief in her mother's words, but the wound was still there. It was open. "I just want Aurora to know that I will always be there for her," thought Nayeli, trying to find strength in her mother's words. While Nayeli helped her mother with the housework, she couldn't get the thoughts out of her head. "It will be okay. Aurora will feel guilty for what happened," they thought to Yeli, while she was washing the dishes. "I need to talk to her tomorrow. I need her to know that it wasn't her fault," decided Nayeli, feeling a new determination grow inside her. Maria watched her daughter in silence, sensing the internal battle that Nayeli was facing. "Daughter mine, you are strong. Don't let this situation break you down. Show Mrs. Elvira that you are not going to let yourself be discouraged," said Maria, trying to instill courage in Nayeli. Nayeli looked at her mother, feeling grateful for the support. "I'm going to try. Mom, I'm going to try to be strong," Nayeli responded with a slight smile after lunch. Nayeli helped her mother with the housework while she swept the floor. Nayeli thought about her dreams. "One day I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to help children like Aurora to overcome their difficulties," thought Nayeli, remembering her own struggle to learn. "I know how difficult it is and I want to be that person who makes a difference," Nayeli decided, feeling her heart fill with purpose. Nayeli had always been a determined and generous girl, always willing to help others. "The rest, Mom, after finishing here I can go to Aurora's house to study together," Nayeli asked, hoping that her mother would agree. Maria smiled, knowing how much that meant to her daughter. "Of course, Nayeli, you are being a good friend," Maria said, caressing Aurora's face. Her daughter during the afternoon, Nayeli went to Aurora's house. She was carrying a backpack with books and snacks that Aurora had prepared. "I brought some things for us to study and eat," Nayeli said when she arrived. Aurora opened the door surprised and relieved. "When I saw her friend, thank you, Nayeli. I was afraid that you wouldn't want to talk to me anymore after what happened in class," Aurora said with her eyes full of tears. Nayeli hugged Aurora, feeling her friend's pain. "I would never do that. Aurora, we are in this together. We are going to study and overcome all this," Nayeli responded firmly in Lavos. Aurora smiled, feeling that a little hope was returning. "You always know how to cheer me up,
Nayeli.
Thank you for being my friend," Aurora said, holding Nayeli's hand with gratitude as they studied. Together, Nayeli realized how much Aurora had difficulties with the subjects. "Don't worry, Aurora, let's go step by step. I'm here to help you," said Nayeli, patiently explaining the exercises. Aurora felt more, knowing that I could count on Nayeli. "I know that I will succeed, because you are with me," thought Aurora, determined to get better. At the end of the afternoon, as she returned home, Nayeli felt a sense of satisfaction. Today was a good day. Aurora is getting better, and I am managing to help her, thought Nayeli, feeling the light heart. "I knew I would still face challenges, but I was ready for each one of them. I'm going to keep fighting for myself and for Aurora," decided Nayeli, feeling stronger and more determined than ever. That night, as Nayeli prepared to sleep, the thoughts of the terrible day still haunted her. "How am I going to face the class tomorrow? And if Mrs. Elvira continues to treat me badly?" thought Nayeli, feeling the fear of squeezing her heart. "But I can't give up. Aurora needs me," Nayeli decided, taking a deep breath and trying to calm down before going to sleep. Nayeli looked at the ceiling, lost in her thoughts. If only Mrs. Elvira could understand how difficult it is for Aurora. She needs support, Nayeli reflected, feeling a mixture of sadness and esperanza. Aurora was lying in her bed, reflecting on everything that had happened in class. Elvira's words echoed in his mind, and he felt an overwhelming weight of guilt. Why did this have to happen to Nayeli? He thought with a tight heart. He felt responsible for the harsh words and the correction that her friend had received from the teacher. Tears began to flow down her face as she remembered the incident. Nayeli. She is an excellent friend, Aurora thought, her voice choked with emotion. She is the only friend who knows my secrets, she continued, feeling even more guilty. She remembered how Nayeli. I was always by her side, offering support and understanding. Nayeli is the only one who knows what I went through. She is the only one who knows the things that happen in my house. She did that to help me and was unfairly reprimanded. This shouldn't be. It's all my fault that it happened. I hope things get normal, and that Professor Elvira doesn't scold my best friend anymore." Aurora wiped away her tears, feeling small and helpless. The situation was unfair, and I wished I could change everything. If I could at least do something to fix it. He thought this with his chest tight with sadness. He knew that Nayeli had acted with her heart, trying to help, and now everything seemed to have gone wrong. Nayeli deserves the best. She is so good, he reflected, feeling a mixture of sadness and admiration for her friend. As the night progressed, Aurora continued immersed in her thoughts. What can I do to thank Nayeli for everything she has done for me? She pondered, wishing to find a way to show her gratitude. Despite the guilt, Aurora knew that Nayeli never blamed her, and always supported her unconditionally. I am lucky to have a friend like her, she thought, feeling a slight hope emerge in the midst of sadness. Meanwhile, that same night, Mrs. Elvira sat alone in her simple but well-kept house. The residence was silent except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. She looked around, looking at the antique furniture and the framed photos of her family since Carlos left and the boys left. This house seems so empty, Elvira thought, feeling a squeeze in her chest. The death of her husband and the distance from her children had left a void that she tried to fill with her work. Elvira sighed, feeling the weight of loneliness. I always thought that being rigid and disciplined was the only way to survive. Maintain order, she reflected, remembering her career as a teacher from the beginning. She faced many challenges with the resistance of the students. I had to be strong to maintain control, she thought, remembering the long nights correcting exams and planning classes. Elvira's rigidity was not just a choice, but a way of dealing with his own lack of empathy. He never had material deprivation, grew up in a family where everything was provided, but discipline was imposed with a heavy hand. This shaped his vision of how he should being a teacher. Elvira was never empathetic. When she heard someone talk about difficulties, she said it was weakness. People need to be strong like I was, she thought, justifying her coldness. While looking at the photo of her late husband, Elvira felt a wave of longing. Carlos always said that it should be kinder, more understanding. She remembered feeling a pang of regret, but life had taught Elvira that kindness was often seen as weakness, and I could not afford to be weak, she concluded by reaffirming her need for maintain discipline. Carlos never understood that, she thought, feeling justified in her harshness. Elvira took an old photo album and began to look through it. My children, they also suffered with my rigidity, she reflected, looking at the photos of the boys growing up. Both of them had moved to other cities looking for a life of their own. And they will understand why I was so hard, he asked himself, feeling a lump in his throat. Elvira always believed that she was doing the best to prepare them for the world. They never thanked me, he thought with a touch of bitterness with the night. Moving forward, Elvira made a cup of tea and sat down on the couch. Today's students are so different, she thought. Remembering the children she taught, she often felt that they did not appreciate discipline like she learned to do. Nayeli will realize how much I am trying to help her, she asked herself, remembering the incident in the classroom. The harshness of his words made her uncomfortable. She only sees the bad part, she thought, justifying her attitude. Elvira reflected on her career, so many years dedicated to teaching, but I taught the right way, she thought. Feeling a doubt growing, she remembered the sleepless nights, the challenges she had overcome, but now she wondered if her rigid approach was really the best. She did more harm than good, she thought, feeling the insecurity erode her confidence. The night was clear with the moon illuminating the silent street. I need to find a way to be more understanding, to understand my students better, she decided, feeling a desire for change. But can I change something so deeply rooted in me? She asked herself, knowing that no, it would be easy. Before going to bed, Elvira looked at a photo of Carlos on her nightstand. If you were here, what would you say to me? She asked aloud, hoping to find some guidance in her memories. She closed her eyes and hoped that the new day would bring answers. The next day, after the incident in class, Mrs. Elvira couldn't get the thoughts out of her head. Sitting in her empty room, she reflected on her actions. Nayeli needed to learn a lesson, Elvira thought, feeling justified. Discipline had always been her pillar, and she firmly believed that without it the students could not prosper. The rules exist for a reason, she muttered to herself, reaffirming her belief in the importance of punishment. Elvira remembered her own difficult childhood, where she was often treated with harshness and incomprehension. My father was a stern man, never she had patience for our mistakes, she thought, remembering the nights when she cried alone. She always said that discipline shapes character. she reflected, feeling justified in her actions, and she was right. I became a person. Strong and resilient as she organized her papers, Elvira felt a growing conviction about the justice of her punishment of Nayeli. She just wanted to help her friend, but she needs to understand that there is a time and a place for everything. She thought feeling confident the classroom is not the place for distractions. Discipline had always been her pillar, and she firmly believed that without it the students could not prosper. Mrs. Elvira entered the classroom that morning ready for another day of teaching. She placed her books on the table and noticed a small piece of paper folded next to her notebook. Curious, she opened the note and began to read. Mrs. Elvira, I need you to know the truth about what happened yesterday, the note began, written with Nayeli's careful handwriting. Aurora often arrives at school without having eaten because she can't. There is food at home. I was trying to cheer her up and help her with her homework as well as sharing my lunch with her every day, she wrote with hands shaking slightly. I knew I was risking a lot, but I couldn't let Aurora. Elvira continued reading, feeling a knot in her stomach. Aurora lives in a small house on the outskirts of Torreon with her mother and two younger brothers. Her father abandoned the family, leaving Aurora's mother as the only provider, explained Nayeli. Nayeli also wrote about Aurora's shyness and introversion. She is shy and often goes to school without eating, which affects her academic performance. She has a hard time understanding the subjects and feels embarrassed by her situation. I am the only one who knows what this is happening, Nayeli continued. Each word Nayeli said hit Elvira like a punch in the stomach, loaded with a weight that she had not perceived before. Elvira finished reading the note and felt her stomach turn. How could I have been so blind and insensitive, he thought. Regret beginning to invade her, she remembered the sadness and fear in Nayeli and Aurora's eyes in the classroom and felt deep remorse. She should have been more understanding, she reflected, feeling worse and worse. Aurora watched each Elvira's movement, trying to decipher her reaction. I hope she understands, thought Aurora, feeling a mixture of hope and fear. She knew that Nayeli had written the note to help, and now everything depended on Elvira's response. Please be understanding, or Aurora. With sweaty hands, Elvira finished reading the note and was shocked by everything she read. Nayeli's words revealed a reality that she had never considered. The impact was so great that she began to feel a growing discomfort. She felt her stomach churn and her vision blurred for a moment. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Aurora. They looked at each other, and it was a moment of great tension. The silence in the classroom was palpable, and Elvira noticed Aurora's nervous expression. Her eyes were large and full of anxiety. Elvira felt a pang of guilt when she looked at Aurora. She is just a girl and she is going through all these difficulties, she thought, feeling a wave of shame wash over her. Her face turned red with shame when she realized how insensitive she had been. Then she looked at Nayeli and felt a deep admiration mixed with sadness. How can such a small girl have such a big heart and be so good? Elvira thought, comparing Nayeli's generosity with her own rigidity, always demonstrating strength and superiority. At that moment, she felt small before the greatness of her student Nayeli. She is everything I should be, Elvira reflected, feeling tiny and embarrassed. Elvira was so nervous that she couldn't even finish speaking. The words were escaping from her mouth, and she couldn't say anything. The feeling of inadequacy was overwhelming, and she felt a pressure in her chest that left her breathless. I am not worthy of being called a teacher, she thought, regret and shame taking over her. She suddenly realized that all the students were looking at her, trying to understand what was happening. The attention of the entire class was on her, and Elvira felt the weight of her students' gazes. Feeling ashamed and trying to regain her composure, girls Nayeli and Aurora said at the end of class, I want to talk to you alone. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the internal turbulence that Nayeli and Aurora were feeling. They exchanged glances, both visibly worried about what would come next. Nayeli squeezed Aurora's hand, trying to give her courage, while Aurora, I only nodded timidly. I hope she understands, and that everything will get better, thought Nayeli, anxious for what Mrs. Elvira had to say as the class continued. Elvira could barely concentrate on what she was teaching. Her thoughts were trapped in the note from Nayeli and in Aurora's difficult situation. I was too hard on them, she thought repeatedly, feeling more and more embarrassed. Nayeli's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of her own lack of empathy. The clock moved slowly while Elvira tried to lead the class every minute. What happened? His anxiety increased, and the desire to fix things. I need to do something to help, he decided, feeling the urgency to correct his mistakes. He knew that a simple conversation would not be enough, but it was a start. I have to show that I care, she thought, trying to calm down. Finally, the class came to an end, and the students began to gather their things to leave. Elvira took a deep breath and called Nayeli and Aurora to come to her table. Girls, please, come here, she said, trying to keep my voice steady. I knew I had to approach the situation with care and sensitivity. Nayeli and Aurora walked to the teacher's table, feeling the tension in the air. I read your note, Nayeli, and I want to apologize to both of them, Elvira said, feeling the words coming out. With difficulty, Elvira felt one of emotions when she spoke. I did not understand her situation. I was insensitive and unfair. Aurora, I am very sorry for not realizing how much you were suffering, she said, looking directly at Aurora. I will do everything possible to help from now on, Elvira promised, feeling the weight of regret. Aurora looked at the teacher, surprised and relieved. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira, Aurora said with her voice almost in a whisper. Elvira came home from an intense day at school, feeling devastated. Reading her note, Nayeli still resonated in her mind. She fell into the living room armchair with her head in her hands. Regret grew in her chest. Each of Nayeli's words revealed a painful truth that she had ignored. I should have realized, she reflected, feeling small and ashamed. The silence of the house seemed to increase her guilt. Aurora is going through so much, and I treated her so harshly, thought Elvira, feeling the tears welling up. She always believed that discipline was the key to success, but now she saw how much she had failed to be empathic. I need to correct my mistake, she decided, standing up with determination. I have to do something to help. Elvira walked around the house trying to organize her thoughts. Carlos always told me that I should be more understanding. Maybe he was right, she reflected, remembering her late husband. He always tried to show her a kinder way, but Elvira was trapped in her own convictions. Now I see how wrong she was, she thought, feeling the loss of her own humanity. She went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea, trying to calm down. I can't change the past, but I can do something now, she decided, feeling a little hope. Elvira knew she would need more than words to fix things. I need concrete actions, she thought while taking a sip of tea. I have to do something that really makes a difference in life of these children. As she looked out the window, Elvira began to formulate a plan. A feeding program can help students like Aurora thought, feeling the idea growing. If they have guaranteed meals, maybe they can concentrate better in studies, she reflected, feeling energized by the possibility of doing good. I'm going to propose this to the school management tomorrow, she decided, but Aurora needs help now. I can't wait, thought Elvira, feeling the urgency in her heart. Elvira went to the pantry and began to separating some foods. This will help Aurora and her family get through another day, she thought, placing rice, beans, tortillas, cans of beans, and some chilies in a bag. I hope this makes a difference, she mused, feeling a little relief. Seeing the full bag, I'm going to deliver this to her tomorrow, she decided, determined to act quickly. The next day, Elvira arrived at school with a new determination. She went directly to the principal's office and asked to speak with the principal. Rodrigo, I need to discuss an important idea, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The intrigued director invited her in. Elvira began to explain her proposal with passion. I would like to create a feeding program for students in need. We have many children who they come to school without eating, and that affects their performance, he said, feeling the urgency in his words. Rodrigo listened, carefully, seeing the sincerity in Elvira's eyes. I understand, Elvira. This is something we really need, he responded, beginning to feel the same enthusiasm. How do you plan to implement this, he asked, interested in the details. Elvira took a deep breath and continued. We can involve the teachers, the parents, and the community, raise funds, and organize a simple dining room. She explained each word, reinforcing her commitment. Director nodded thoughtfully. I'm going to talk to the teachers about this. I'm sure everyone will want to help, he said, showing his support. Elvira felt a wave of relief and gratitude. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. This means a lot to me. And to the children, Elvira responded, feeling more confident. So she went to the classroom, feeling a new energy and purpose. When she entered, she saw Aurora sitting at her desk, still looking a little nervous. Elvira walked towards her with a warm smile. Aurora, I brought a gift for you, she said, handing her the bag of food. Aurora looked at the bag, surprised and excited. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira, said with a glow of gratitude. Nellie, who was next to Aurora, was also happy to see the teacher's gesture. "This is going to help a lot, Mrs. Elvira." "Thank you," said Nayeli. Feeling relief and sincere happiness, Elvira felt a deep connection with the two girls. She leaned down and kissed each of them on the forehead, a gesture of affection and support. Director and the support of the teachers, Elvira began to mobilize the community for the new feeding program, organized meetings with parents, and asked for donations of basic foods, as well as fruits and vegetables. "We are going to transform the lives of these children," Elvira said during one of the meetings, feeling more determined than ever. The parents and teachers were receptive and began to mobilize. Elvira felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thanks to all of us together, we can change the lives of these children," she said, feeling a new energy as the feeding program began to take shape. Elvira felt a transformation within herself. "I am finally doing something that really matters," she thought, observing the preparations in the dining room. "Aurora and other children will have the opportunity to study without hunger," she reflected, feeling a weight being lifted on her shoulders. This is just the beginning, determined to continue making a difference. On the first day of operation of the program, Elvira watched with satisfaction as the children were lining up to receive their meals. "This is for you," said, smiling at Aurora and Nayeli. Aurora looked at Elvira with gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Elvira said, holding the plate of food carefully. Next to Aurora smiled shyly. "You are doing a lot of good," Nayeli said with admiration in her voice. Elvira felt a deep emotion when she saw the children eating. "I did what needed to be done," she thought, seeing the happiness on the students' faces. "This is the true reward," she reflected, finally feeling at peace. The transformation was not only in the feeding program, but also within Elvira. "Empathy can change the world," she thought, committing to being a more understanding teacher and attentive to the needs of her students. The students began to unite more and organized events and campaigns to help other classmates in need, creating a more supportive and welcoming environment at school. During recess, a group of students gathered on the field, discussing ways to help their classmates in need. They knew that small actions could make a big difference in the lives of others. One student suggested organizing a craft fair where they could sell their creations and raise funds to buy school supplies and food for classmates who needed support. The idea was received enthusiastically and quickly by everyone. They began to think about how to contribute. Some decided to bring paintings and drawings they had made, while others offered to make bracelets, necklaces, and other craft items. The collaborative energy spread by the school, and the enthusiasm was palpable. The fair was scheduled for the following week, and all the students began to mobilize, dedicating time and effort to ensure the success of the event. During the preparations, Elvira watched with a smile on her face, feeling immense pride when she saw the positive change that was happening in the school. They really understood the message. She thought, excited about the impact of their actions. The unity and solidarity were transforming the school environment, making it more welcoming and empathetic. Elvira knew they were on the right path to creating a place where everyone felt valued and supported. On the day of the fair, the school was full of life. Colorful stalls adorned the courtyard, and the students worked together, enthusiastically organizing their products and preparing to sell. The school community also attended en masse to support the cause. Parents, teachers, and students walked through the stalls, buying items and praising the efforts of the young people. "It is so good seeing our children come together for such a noble cause," commented a proud mother. The atmosphere was one of joy and collaboration, and everyone felt like they were contributing to something special. Elvira walked between the stalls, chatting with the students and visitors. "I am so proud of all of you," she said, looking at them. The children working together, Aurora and Nayeli, who were helping to organize the event, they felt deeply valued and understood the union of the students was creating a more supportive environment and welcoming. At the end of the day, the fair was a great success. The students managed to raise much more than they expected, and everyone celebrated together, feeling the strength of unity and solidarity. "This is going to help many families," reflected one of the students, feeling fulfilled. Nayeli and Aurora hugged each other, feeling the gratitude and happiness overflowing. "I never imagined that a small help could become something so big," thought Nayeli excitedly. Elvira looked at the students with pride and joy. "Today they have shown that united, we can transform the world around us," she said, her voice full of emotion. "Each one of you made a difference. And this is just the beginning," she added, feeling inspired by the future. "Let's continue like this, making our school a place of welcome and solidarity." She encouraged, seeing the determined looks of the students, Nayeli at the end of the fair reflected on the impact that her actions and the unity of her classmates had caused. I am very happy to see how everyone came together, she thought, feeling deep gratitude. Aurora, for her part, she felt relieved and happy. I feel like we are finally making a difference, she thought. Looking around, the unity and mutual support gave them both the certainty that they could overcome any challenge. The school, transformed by the solidarity of the students, became an example of how kindness and empathy can create a more welcoming and positive environment. This is the power of unity, thought Elva, feeling grateful for being part of that transformation. With everyone's help, making the world a better place, she concluded, determined to continue promoting actions that would strengthen the school community. One day, the school director decided to hold a gathering to celebrate the success of the school's feeding program. While the dining room was filled with the animation of the children eating and talking, Elvira looked at her around and felt a fulfillment she had never experienced before. Every child here deserves the best, she thought to Aurora and Nayeli, smiling as they ate together. This is the true purpose of teaching, she concluded. Determined to continue this journey of transformation and positive impact, the school was decorated with balloons and colorful ribbons as students, teachers, and parents gathered to celebrate the success of the new feeding program. Vera felt a mix of nervousness and pride as he prepared to speak today. It's an important day, he thought, taking a deep breath to calm down. I need to say what's in my heart. When the ceremony began, the director spoke first, praising the collective effort of all the people involved. This program would not have been possible without the dedication of our school community, he said. While those present applauded, then he called Elvira to the stage. Now I invite Mrs. Elvira to share a few words to announce the director. Rodrigo. Elvira went up to the stage, feeling everyone's eyes on she. Good afternoon, everyone, began with a slightly trembling voice. Today, I would like to tell you how all this started, she said, looking at Nayeli and Aurora in the crowd. There was a day when I called Nayeli's attention in the classroom, she continued. Remembering the painful moment, I said very harsh words to her without knowing what was really going on. Elvira paused, feeling the emotion growing. The next day, I received a note that informed me about the difficulties that Aurora was facing, she said, her voice full of regret. It was then that I realized that I was wrong, that I had been too harsh, and I deeply regret it. He looked directly at Nayeli and Aurora. I already apologized to Aurora and Nayeli privately, but now I want to apologize publicly, he breathed deep before continuing. I'm sorry, girls. I'm sorry I was so harsh and rude to you that day. I'm grateful for everything that happened, because thanks to all this, I'm now doing everything I can to help other children, including you. Aurora. Mainly the crowd was silent, absorbing her words. Elvira felt the need to continue. Nayeli is a very kind girl, she said with a smile. She is an example for me and for everyone at the school. Generosity and compassion inspired us all to be better. After the ceremony, Elvira and Nayeli stood aside to talk. Elvira looked into Nayeli's eyes, feeling a wave of gratitude. Nayeli, I want you to know how much I admire you. Your kindness changed my life and the lives of many others, said Elvira with her voice full of sincerity. Nayeli smiled shyly, feeling valued. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira. I'm glad that all this has led to something good, she responded, feeling a deep connection with the teacher. I know she's trying to do better for all of us, she added with her soft and comforting voice. Elvira felt tears running down her face. You have taught me so much, Nayeli. I am eternally grateful, she said, hugging the girl. The hug was full of understanding and mutual respect, sealing the reconciliation between them. We are going to continue working together to help more children, suggested Elvira, feeling renewed. Nayeli, without feeling part of something bigger. Yes, Mrs. Elvira. With union we can transform lives, she agreed, feeling a new hope. The moment between them was one of pure understanding and admiration, showing that true change is possible through empathy and joint effort. After talking with Nayeli, Elvira approached Aurora, who was a little apart, observing the fraternization with a shy smile. Elvira felt a wave of tenderness when looking at the girl. Aurora, I can talk to you for a moment, she asked softly. Aurora nodded and walked towards Elvira, still a little excited. Elvira put her hand on Aurora's shoulder and looked directly into her eyes. Aurora, I want you to know that as long as I'm here, I will do everything I can to make sure that you never go through difficulty again, she said with a voice full of determination and affection. You deserve a better life, and I am going to do everything possible to help you. Aurora felt Elvira's words like a deep relief. She looked at the teacher with her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira. This means a lot to me, Aurora responded, feeling more confident and hopeful than ever. The teacher's words were a balm for her heart, and she felt a new confidence emerge within her. Elvira smiled, feeling a even stronger connection with Aurora. You are a very special girl, Aurora, and you deserve all the support and affection we can give you, said Elvira with a sparkle in her eyes. Aurora smiled back, feeling deeply valued. Thank you for believing in me, she said with her voice full of emotion. The celebration continued happily, with everyone sharing stories and laughter. Elvira looked around and was proud of what they had achieved together. Every small gesture of kindness makes a big difference, she reflected, seeing Aurora and Nayeli happy among their friends. She knew that with everyone's support they could continue improving the lives of the school children. While the fraternization progressed, Elvira felt light and happy, something she had not experienced for a long time. Today is a new beginning, she thought, watching the children play and the parents converse animatedly. This is the true purpose of teaching, concluded, determined to continue this journey of transformation and positive impact. After the fraternization, Elvira gathered the parents and teachers to discuss the next steps of the feeding program. We need to make sure that this program continues to grow and help more children, said Elvira, feeling motivated. We can achieve it if we work together, she added, feeling the support of the community. The parents and teachers agreed and committed to continue contributing with the program. With the support of the community, the feeding program began to expand, helping more and more children. Elvira felt a deep fulfillment when she saw the positive impact. Through her actions, we are making a difference, she thought, observing the children feeding and studying with more vigor and happiness. At the end of the fellowship, when most of the guests had already dispersed, a woman approached Elvira. The teacher immediately noticed the expression of gratitude on Elvira's face. The woman's face. Good afternoon, Mrs. Elvira, said the woman with a shy smile. I am Louisa, Aurora's mother. Unfortunately, I could not make it to the beginning of the fraternization, but I wanted to meet her personally. Elvira felt a wave of emotion upon hearing Louisa's words. It is a pleasure to meet her, Elvira responded, extending her hand. Her daughter is a very special girl, she added, feeling the sincerity in each word. Louisa shook Elvira's hand firmly, her eyes shining with gratitude. She wanted to thank her personally for everything she had done. Louisa began, her voice full of emotion. Since she started helping us with food, our life has improved a lot. Elvira felt a lump in her throat. Hearing that, she doesn't know how happy I am to know, she responded, holding back the tears that threatened to fall. Louisa continued explaining the difficult situation she was facing. Aurora's father left home some time ago, and I have been working as a maid to support the family, she said with her voice trembling with fatigue and sadness. Determination with donations and your support has been easier now. We can feed ourselves better, and that makes a big difference. Elvira felt deep empathy for the woman in front of her. She greatly admired her strength and determination. Said Elvira honestly, it takes a lot of courage to face all this and still maintain hope. Louisa nodded with tears finally escaping her eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira. Your initiatives, they are incredible and have made a huge difference for us. Emotion overwhelmed Elvira. She approached Louisa and wrapped her in a warm hug. The one who is grateful is me, said Elvira with a broken voice. Do good. Not only does it help those who receive, but also those who give. I feel good to be able to help. Louisa returned the hug, feeling consoled and understood. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, she repeated, feeling a weight leave her shoulders as they separated from the hug. Elvira looked at Louisa with determination. We will continue to do everything possible to support them, she said with a smile, an encouraging laugh. Louisa smiled in response, feeling more hopeful than ever. With certainty, Mrs. Elvira, together we can overcome anything, she responded, feeling a new confidence. Elvira watched as Louisa walked away, feeling deep satisfaction in her heart. This is the true reward, she thought, feeling grateful for being able to make a difference in someone's life. She knew the work was just beginning, but she was determined to continue. Every gesture of kindness, she reflected, feeling more motivated than ever. The school was beginning to empty, but the feeling of togetherness and purpose remained. Elvira felt inspired by the conversation with Louisa. It is incredible how small actions can have such a big impact, she thought while helping to dismantle the tents and tidy up the patio. Let's continue, Strengthening this community, she decided, feeling a renewed determination. While Elvira put away the last materials, she reflected on the path that had led her there. It was a difficult path full of challenges, but every step was worth it, she thought, feeling grateful for everyone who joined her in this cause. The future seems brighter now, he concluded with a smile on his face. He knew that with the support of the community, they could continue to create a welcoming and supportive environment for everyone. The sun, it was beginning to set, and Elvira, exhausted but happy, looked around the empty patio. Today was a great day, she thought, feeling the fatigue of her body mixed with the joy of her heart. She knew that many girls like Aurora now had a better chance in life thanks to everyone's efforts. We are going to continue fighting for a better future, she promised herself as she headed home. Elvira returned home that night with a light heart, reflecting on the positive impact her actions had had on the school community. Much to do, but today we took a big step, she thought, feeling deep gratitude. She knew that together they could face any challenge and transform the lives of many girls and families. This is just the beginning, she concluded, determined to continue making a difference. Aurora and Nayeli continued together at school, feeling supported and loved. Thank you, Mrs. Elvira, for everything, Aurora said one day at the end of a class. Elvira smiled and responded, "You don't need to thank Aurora. Seeing them happy and healthy is the greatest reward." So the transformation of Elvira not only impacted her life, but also that of many other people. She became a more understanding teacher, attentive to the needs of her students, and determined to make a difference. Together we can create a better future for everyone, Elvira thought, observing her students with pride and esperanza. Years passed, and one day Mrs. Elvira was walking through the hallways, proudly observing the result of the transformations that had occurred. Nayeli and Aurora were years old and about to graduate from school. Nayeli had excelled academically over the years. "I always determined to achieve my goals. All the support I received here made all the difference," Nayeli thought as she remembered the opportunities and incentives that the school and her community had given her. "I am going to take these lessons with me for life," she reflected, feeling grateful for each person who helped her on her path, gratitude overflowing in her heart, knowing that she would not have gotten this far without the support of her Aurora community that she had faced significant difficulties. She also thrived. She had become a strong and determined young woman inspired by her friend's example. Life has changed a lot since those difficult times, thought Aurora, looking at Nayeli with admiration. "I never imagined she could achieve so much," she reflected, remembering the nights of worry and uncertainty. Now, with the constant support of Elvira and Nayeli, she was ready for any challenge. Mrs. Elvira watched the two young women, feeling deep pride. They are living proof that empathy and solidarity can transform lives, thought Elvira, her heart warmed by the achievements of her students. Seeing the progress of Nayeli and Aurora is the greatest reward she could ask for, she reflected, feeling fulfilled. As an educator, every effort, every initiative had been worth it. During the ceremony graduation, Nayeli went up on stage to receive her diploma. The applause filled the auditorium, and Elvira felt tears of pride running down her face. She did it, she thought, remembering every moment of struggle and improvement. Nayeli is an example of perseverance and courage, she reflected as the young woman received her diploma with a radiant smile. The moment was one of pure celebration and recognition. Aurora also stood out at the ceremony, being recognized for her progress and dedication. "I am so proud of myself," Aurora thought, as he walked on stage to receive his award. "I never imagined he could go this far," he reflected, feeling a wave of realization. The applause and smiles around him were a testament to his achievement. Incredible journey of improvement. After the ceremony, Elvira approached Nayeli and Aurora, feeling deeply moved. "You two are the reason why I do what I do," Elvira said with her voice full of emotion. "Seeing their growth and success is the greatest reward I could ask for." She continued, hugging the two young girls. Nellie and Aurora returned the hug, feeling grateful for all the support and love they received over the years. Nayeli looked into Elvira's eyes, feeling emotional. "Thank you for never giving up with us, Mrs. Elvira," said Nayeli, her voice full of gratitude. "That with support and determination we can achieve anything," she added, feeling inspired to continue making a difference. Elvira smiled, feeling deeply moved by Nayeli's words. "You have taught me as much as I have taught you," she responded to you, feeling honored to be part of your lives. Aurora also expressed her gratitude. Mrs. Elvira changed our lives forever. We will never forget everything she did for us. Said Aurora with her eyes full of tears. She gave us hope and a future. Continued feeling inspired to move forward. Elvira felt deeply moved by Aurora's words, knowing that their impact would go beyond the walls of the school. As the sun set, setting the end of an unforgettable day, Elvira reflected on the path taken to see my students grow and prosper is the greatest joy of my life, she concluded, determined to continue making a difference. The story of Nayeli Aurora and Elvira was proof of the power of kindness, friendship, and togetherness. Nayeli's act of kindness in helping Aurora triggered a change not only in Aurora's life but in the entire school, impacting many other people and creating a greater community. Strong and supportive. If you like this story, I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps me to continue sharing incredible stories every day. Don't miss the next amazing story that now appears on your screen. I greatly appreciate your support. See you soon.